Do you live your life not having a clue of how much money you save or spend each month? Today, I'm sharing with you 7 steps that will help you get in control of your money. Hi, welcome to the Money Talk with Miriam, a channel where we make finances simple and also share ways to give your kids a solid financial foundation while having fun. If you're new here, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. Let's start with a simple question. Do you know if you're saving or overspending at the end of each month? If your answer is no, you're in the right place because I'm going to help you change that. If your answer is yes, that means you know what's left at the end of each month. Congratulations! I invite you to continue watching as you might learn things that you can do differently to improve your budgeting. It is simple. If you and your family want financial security, having a budget is the only answer. The starting point is actually being aware of your daily choices and why you make those choices. With a budget, you can actually work on your behavior and create an automated system where money does its thing without you having to do much. The goal here is that the thought of a budget should fill you with feelings of freedom, empowerment, rather than stress and anxiety. Before credit cards invaded our society, people tended to know if they were living within their means. It was simple. If at the end of the month they had enough money to pay their bills and put something into savings, they were on track. Nowadays, people who use and abuse credit cards don't always realize that they're overspending until they're drowning in debt. Actually, finances are the most common argument amongst married couples. Having a budget allows you to have cold, hard facts when it comes to communicating. And this makes much easier having a calm conversation about money. Very often people think that budgeting dictates their lives and that they're no longer allowed to have fun or enjoy things. Let me steal a phrase from Rachel Cruz that I love. A budget doesn't limit your freedom. It gives you freedom. Some people use the rule of whatever is left at the end of the month, I will put it into saving or investing. This is a backward thinking. The idea here is to tell your money where to go instead of wonder where it went. A budget is simply a spending plan that tells you what you can afford to spend your money on and your financial limitations. It takes into account your current financial situation and it helps you plan your goals and work towards them. With a budget, you know exactly how much money you make, how much money you can afford to spend, and how much money you need to save. So let me share with you 7 steps that will help you get on a budget and start achieving your financial goals. Step number 1. Create an Excel sheet or download one of these fancy apps to start tracking your expenses. My husband and I use an Excel sheet. Call me traditional, but I love doing the calculations myself and seeing how much we spend on each category when typing the numbers into the calculator. This is the Excel sheet we use, which includes our fixed and variable costs. For the variable, we use a separate sheet to track every single spend we have. From a €1 parking ticket to a €300 new appliance we buy for the house. That leads me to step number 2. Input all the information you have. You'll be surprised on how much you don't know about where your money is going. For example, how much money you spend on groceries each month, or in dining out, or ordering in these days, or in online shopping, or subscriptions, or Amazon. My recommendation: start tracking your expenses for 3 consecutive months. It sounds silly, but believe me, you've been for I don't know how long without a budget. It won't change your life to continue the same for another 3 months. Why am I saying that? Because the only way to change your spending habits is by getting to know what those habits are. Building a budget forces you to have a closer look at your spending habits, and tracking them for 3 months will help you understand them. Step number 4. After inputting all your expenditure from your last 3 months, it's time to analyze how you spend your money. As I said in step number 3, you got to know what your spending habits are in order to change them. With the data from the last 3 months, you will be able to, first of all, identify bad habits. You might notice that you're spending money on things that you don't actually need. And second, flag categories that need improvement. Believe me, you don't know how many subscriptions and recurring expenses you have until you write them down. Next step is understanding the 50-20-30 rule. Let's start with the 50. 50% should be the maximum amount your basic needs should account for. Basics such as housing, utilities, groceries, health insurance. In our case, we were doing it well because our basic needs represented 28.5% of our combined income. Now let's look at the 20. 20% should be the minimum amount you should be saving on a monthly basis. I could talk to you for hours about the fact that my generation, millennials, and the following ones won't see a cent from state pensions, so we better start putting money away for our own retirement. And not only that, but saving money is the only way to achieve your financial goals, whether they're getting debt-free, buying a new car, buying your first home, anything. And lastly, 30. 30% should be the maximum amount you spend on your wants. Dining out, weekend getaways, hairdresser, manicure, shopping, memberships, anything that you don't literally need. Now that you know the rule, it's time to progressively reduce the expenditure and set goals. So basically, compare your numbers with the 50-20-30 rule and put in place some new habits to get in the right track. First, make sure you're below that 50% on fixed costs. If you're above, it's time to reevaluate your expenses and reduce them as much as possible. For example, renegotiating your medical insurance package, or going with a cheaper internet or cell phone provider, or redefining how you do your groceries for the family, doing it once a week rather than every other day. That's actually what my husband and I did, and we saved a little over €100 a month. Another extremely important aspect is understanding your debt. Taking out a mortgage or buying a new car are some ways to get into debt. Make sure you understand your interest rates, terms, and length of loans. For example, in 2019, we bought the apartment we live in and we took a mortgage. We were given the option of going with a fixed or a variable interest rate. And we decided to go with a variable because we could take advantage of the low interest rate period we live in, and this would also motivate us to pay off the debt as quick as possible to avoid paying more when the interest rates go back up. If you want, you can easily find ways to cut in other areas so you can afford to make extra payments on your debt. Now that you're set with your fixed costs, it's time to look at the variables. You've been tracking your expenses for the last 3 months, so you know if you're on that 30% mark, if you're below, or if you're overspending. Even if you're one of those below the 30% mark, I invite you to have a closer look at your spending and really think if everything you're buying is making you happy. My husband and I were over 35% when we first did our budget 3 years ago. And after reevaluating our spending decisions, we went down to a 25%. I can tell you that it feels so good to know that you're saving even more money while still pampering yourself. Something we did was setting aside a discretionary category that we call it ad hoc, which allows us both to spend the money the way we want, knowing that there's a limit. 1 month, for example, we might go on a family weekend getaway. Some other month, we might spend it on a Michelin star restaurant. Another month, we might buy something nice for the home. Once you start progressively reducing your expenditure, you will see how saving gets much easier. At this point, it's time to establish some automations. Before you start saving for something you want to buy, you first need to build up an emergency fund, a safety net that would cover your expenses in case of job loss. I recommend you to keep in your check account between 3 to 6 times your monthly expenses, including fixed and variable, depending if you have 1 or 2 salaries coming home and if you have dependents like kids or parents. Now that you've built your emergency fund, it's time to set up short, mid, and long-term goals so you can start saving for them. Short-term can be saving to pay off your car in less than 2 years. Mid-term can be saving to put a down payment for your first home. And long-term can be saving to have a comfortable retirement. Lastly, and most important, find time to celebrate the achievements. It's not easy to put money away today, having the permanent temptation from a society that praises who has the latest iPhone or who's driving the fanciest car. You might not have the largest collection of shoes, but you will be the one with a stress-free life. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel to watch more videos talking about money and how to make finances simpler. See you around.